Hello and welcome to this video. This is a Philosophy Sunday video and it's going to be called For Those Who Love My Musical Opinion But Hate My Political Opinion. In terms of the themes and ideas and discussions and what else, how can I, sort of a grief that I have been going through this week. This has been the central idea. I'd love to be sat there thinking about, free jazz or heavy metal, and musical stuff. I'd love to be coming on here to talk about creativity. But last Sunday, I did a video on Glastenbury. Now, I do this every single year. And I know that I open myself up to certain complaints, certain pushback when I do so. And actually, that video about Glastenbury was actually motivated by the very successful video I'd done the week before, where I climbed up a hill, got very puffed, and then had an existential crisis and felt like whatever I do in my life, I never feel part of anything ever. So I don't really feel part of the YouTube set. I'm not like, Sea of Tranquility or, Notes Review or the Prog Corner. I don't seem to be doing the same thing they do. I don't know who I align with that. I've never felt part of the progressive rock scene, which I've played in, or any of the other scenes I've ever played in. I never felt part of the educational establishment. I've never felt part of the community in my hometown. I've always felt a little bit of an outsider. And when that feeling crops up, because I had such a huge reaction from, the middle-aged guys that were watching this, who were sat there feeling exactly the same, that I thought I should explore this outsideriness when it crops up, which I did last Sunday. Now, what motivated this? Well, what motivated this was I'm a musician. I'm a progressive rock musician, and I'm also a lecturer. I exist in a certain community. I've spent my life, meeting people and adding them on Facebook, and I have a certain Facebook community. A few months ago, I had to delete Facebook completely. I stopped really using it for musical purposes. In fact, I stopped it altogether. But I found it was difficult to contact people for interviews and stuff like this for this channel without having Messenger. I tried to run Messenger without it. And I've had to start it up, and it draws you back in. So I'm back in, but I'm adding people as they, approach me because they like the channel. But on the whole, I just added in all the people I know. Now, all the people I know tend to be very nice people, very lovely people. They've worked in teaching or they're musicians. But politically, they are much different to my politics, right? Much different. And so when I see them posting certain things, not only do I feel not a part of it, but I react to it on a visceral level. I think, why aren't I like this? Why am I not going on about Neil Young or Pulp or Rod Stewart and saying how great they are and photographing my TV and going, look at this, isn't this great? Then yeah, they're wonderful. Oh, Rod's always good. And I think, why aren't I doing that? And usually when somebody says something's quite good, I go and check it out. So I went out and checked Neil Young, and I was like, I don't get it. And then I saw those videos that were creating such a sort of a scene politically, which was the lack of videos from Kneecap and then the Bob Villa videos. So I react like this. I think, I've played Glastenbury. I know what Glastenbury is. It's a load of sort of middle-class kids, basically. When we say kids, they're up to 40. And then the ones who are older, they're all watching it from home. But it's a certain type of person. It's elitist. It's middle class. It's the new Henley Regatta. And I don't have an issue with that. It's got a great big wall around it. You can't get in unless you paid for your 400 quid ticket. And I just react against it. When I played there, I can remember coming off stage, and there was a whole host of politicians, influence. There's a whole bunch of people that wanted to be seen to be at Glastenbury because it represented something of the liberal elites. And I saw a contradiction there and I lampooned it. And in doing that, of course, I was not pro-Palestine. Now, for me, this was a minor detail. For me, there was a contradiction in the rich, jumping around, getting muddy with their 400 ticket whilst waving their Palestinian flags, while some guy shouts left-wing things, which they all cheer. But the man in the street looks at it and goes, what the hell's that about? Don't like it. And then you see this sort of culture clash happening. I'm a contrarian. I should be on the side of the liberal lefties. I really should. I'm not working class. I'm pretty middle class. My dad was a company director. I was a teacher in education. I played in the music industry, which is full of these sort of liberal elite types. And I should be like that, but I'm just a natural contrarian. Now, I want to deal with that here, if I can, objectively on here. Try to explain to you where I'm coming from and try and stop some of the comments, because I have to be honest, when you're dealing, I don't mind people saying, I don't think you're right there, Andy, or you've got that wrong. That never bothers me. But I tell you what does bother me is if somebody says, you shouldn't really be talking about this, Andy. Stick to drumming, stick to music. You just don't really know about politics. I find that massively patronising. And people who do that, they seem to think that they have some sort of secret knowledge about politics and that their opinion's absolute. And when I'm saying a counter opinion, it's just, I'm just ignorant or I'm not well read. Right now, when you go into the music industry, it's full of these people who are at the top of the elite class. And they do look down. They look down. Those little things where you get bands like Oasis come through, as Noel's right, that could never happen nowadays. If you meet someone in the industry, you know that they have come from quite an elite class. I'm not saying they're billionaires. I'm not saying they're bloody members of BlackRock or the WEF. I'm just saying that they're well off. They've been able to pursue what they love and have the backup of that. And they're in a social circle when they have they're friends with those types. And if I'm knocking a band like Mumford & Sons, it's not that I'm against them, and it's not really that I hate the music. It's just that I know that they are that type of band, and there's nothing wrong with that until they start championing this type of stuff. And then it starts to become a little bit of a thing that sticks in my throat. Can't help it. I just cannot help it. My life would be easier if I kept my mouth shut. My life would be easier if I didn't have an opinion. But then I think, I'm supposed to have an opinion. How can I do a YouTube video like this and talk about everything I talk about? Jazz, rock, prog, fusion, creativity, inspiration, philosophy, objectivity, subjectivity, all these things, but not politics, right? And I'm very aware that when I talk about these philosophical ideas, when I talk about the creativity, when I talk about mental health issues, all those types of things, there's an audience here that find that very interesting. But as soon as I venture towards politics, you can see that there's a schism. And that schism is, I like Andy when he talks about music, but he's like some reform guy. He's like a Trump supporter. He's like a right-winger, right? I'm going to state to you where I come from politically, right? I, like many people who are pushing against me, am a liberal lefty by my nature. When COVID and Brexit happened, those two things, I was on the liberal side, and I started to have a go, and I started to argue with people on the internet about it, arguing about leaving the EU, which seemed like a bonkers thing to do to me, about not following the COVID restrictions and all these types of things. I was that type of person. But since I was a teenager, I've had a massive distrust of identity politics, which I have studied in huge depth, going through all the different philosophers, the political thinking, and exploring that. For the last 40 years, I've also sat in conversation with different political philosophers, cognitive scientists, all sorts of different academics, and I have picked their brain for literally the last 30 or 40 years. I was very interested in drum tuition. and teaching music. I was very interested in the cognitive science that was behind that. 20 years ago, I was very interested in the breakthroughs that were happening in cognitive science, the breakthroughs that were happening in evolutionary genetics. I wasn't a scientist, but I was asking questions of those academics who knew about that stuff. And I started to realize that categorically, identity politics was based upon really bad philosophy. And it makes you feel good, and it spouts things that sound like they're going to help people. But when you're trying to enact any sort of policy or thinking on them, it does the precise opposite. And then I start to see the evidence of it doing the precise opposite. And I believe that one of the great problems we've got culturally at the moment is come from identity politics. And that's a video that will exist on my political channel. I'm just setting up the idea about talking about music and the arts on this and exploring why people like what I say when I talk about music, but they don't like what I say politically. And I'm going to try and explain to you the join up between those two on this video, if I can. So I've got a history with this. You know, I've read what I've read. No one's read everything. So I do get annoyed when I get that you're talking shite, you should just stick to drumming, you haven't done your research, right? That winds me up. It's evidence of a certain snotty elitism that I have a real problem with, right? All the way through as a music teacher, I was aware that there was this academic idea of what music is. And those people believe that, like, ideologically. There's jazz musicians out there that believe that that guy's a good player and that guy's not a good player, and they can tell who a good player is and who a non-good player is. And they have a whole bunch of set of rules, you know, and they will sit there, you know, putting musicians down because it's not fulfilling what they think is great jazz or great classical playing or great playing in any shape or form. I came from an arts background. You can see my paintings are all around the room here now. I've been bringing them in. And so my training in fine art made me realise that that's up for question. It always should be up for question. That academic elitism, when you go over to the humanities, you start to get there. And there is a certain way of thinking that has come from Marxism through critical theory, blah, 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 blah. And those people think that they have the academic Platonic truth. It can't be questioned. And that idea, that sort of elitism, it's the same elitism. The elitism that says this is how music should be. Now, on this channel, I've spent 3 or 4 years trying to lay the groundworks for another way of discussing objectivity without getting pulled down into the academic idea of what is just good because this is the way it is. And skirting around the postmodernist idea that there is no version of good. I've tried to come at this a different way. And I know that that has been interesting to people. One of the things that's been interesting is the way that I have dealt with objectivity. The reason why I've had philosophers come on this channel is that a number of them came to me interested by my idea of the superiometer. And the superiometer is an artistic conceit that pretends that you could actually calculate from a scientific point of view what aesthetic truth is. But aesthetic truth is an oxymoron. You cannot have aesthetic truth. Truth is one thing and aesthetics is another thing, right? And it's related to how we experience the world. The subject-object division, which is the fundamental discussion ground of philosophy, right, is actually solved in a way by the arts. But we live in a post-rational society based upon the philosophy that emerged in Greece, that went through sort of Christianity to the Renaissance, to the Enlightenment, to the industrialization that happened in Europe, following on to the post-industrialization ideas of Karl Marx, the postmodernist ideas. All this is based upon a certain way of thinking about rationalism. Postmodernism quite rightly identified the faults with thinking that there's this absolute truth out there, or an absolute sort of moral, or an absolute aesthetic. But I believe that as much as it was right, postmodernism was also wrong, because it's far more mysterious than the postmodernist thought. And saying that everything is about power structures and saying everything is simply about social constructed ideas, right, just created another dogma which now everybody is bought into. And you will be told by the man in the street that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and they will say that believing that it is absolutely true, not realizing that what they say itself is contradictory. It annoys me that spending a whole lifetime exploring this, which I have, being able to set up a YouTube channel, which when I started to discuss these ideas, had an effect on an audience and grew an audience here that took this channel a little bit further than just somebody doing top 10 prog lists get. Because I know there was something interesting, and I'm not saying I understood it, I was just talking about it. I was getting other people to think about it, right? I was relating that to mental health issues, you know, and trying to line up mental health issues, which you can see is a sort of irrational way of seeing the world fundamentally, but trying to relate that to aesthetics and how that aesthetic way of viewing the world is of worth. You must value it, and you must treat it as it is. The Tractatus, one of the great philosophical works of the 20th century, is Wittgenstein trying in a very small book with a series of aphorisms to state what we can talk about. And at the end of it, once he has stated what you can say about the world, he said the rest we shouldn't talk thereof. Well, I am talking thereof. That's what I do on here, but I'm very aware that what I do on YouTube, which I love, because I can't write a book, because a book is academic. It has to have a bibliography. It has to have references. This is art that I'm doing here. It's art. It might be crap art, but it's art not in that it's high up and it's saying something that's profound, that it's basically fundamentally entertainment and it has aesthetic aspects to it. All right? I have spent a week creating the mise-en-scene that I am sat in right now. I am surrounded by objects, and those objects all mean something. And on this video, I want to bring them forth. This is why I'm sat further away, so I could have the visual thing of me leaving my chair, walking into the background, and bringing something up to you and explaining what this means. But what the meanings of these things are powerful to me. They might be powerful to you, right? They might be powerful to you, but they all have a meaning. They all have something they're trying to say. People have enjoyed that. Now, if you let's leave the politics to the end so I can try and join it up. Let's have a look at some of these objects in the background. Let's go over and I'll bring some of them over. All right? I have here 2 religious artifacts. I have Krishna, the master musician, and I have a fat Buddha. There's actually 2 Buddhas up there, right? These represent my interest in these types of religions, right? And there is something about these that I like very, very much. And part of it is in the aesthetics. I bought this little statue many years ago and it's fallen over and bits are broken off. But I find it aesthetically very pleasing and it represents the musician. This fella here is having a good old laugh, isn't he? He's having a good old laugh. Look at him. He's fat and he doesn't care. Those 2 things are important to me. You understand? They mean something. But also I've had them for a long, long time. Here, I did a video about awards. There are awards up there. I've been giving one of my daughter's friends a lift to school, and they finally finished school. And she brought me, the week that I did my video on awards, she actually bought me a little Oscar. And that means a lot to me. right? There's a number of awards up there, but this one means a lot. I'll show the ones that don't mean anything. They're up there as well. These are the awards I got. These are the awards I got when I was a teacher. I've got two. There was once a point in time when the powers that be, the establishment, thought I was a good teacher, that they didn't think I was a good teacher. That's affected, my experience as a teacher has affected what I talk about here deeply, incredibly deeply. Everything here has a reason. It has a reason to be here. This one is very interesting. This has been in the background for many of my videos. It's a broken clock. Time is another thing I'm very interested in, and the way time works. This is not just a broken clock though. This clock was made by my dad. More of him in a minute. He made this. He used to buy these little clock mechanisms and used to make that's very personal to me, that is. But a few other things, I won't bring everything over. These two will probably be the last thing. So this here, this is the medals that my mum's stepdad's father got from the First World War. Courage is an important thing to me. Very important. I think courage is greater than many of the sort of virtues we talk about. And so I have that in the background of a person from a different time there, you know, and I hope wherever he is now, that fellow, the fact that there's a number of people thinking about him, maybe that's awakening his memory in some way, as his sort of, you know, that's the idea of the afterlife that is in The Bluebird by Shirley Temple, one of these films. And those of you who remember me climbing up the hill, I picked a stick up, and there's the stick. And the stick is in prime place in the background. So what we have here, this is art. It's not just about what I'm saying. Now, all of this here is related to this record collection, which you can see. I've been gathering that together. I have gone back to that as an idea. Now, the basis of this record collection starts with not my records that I bought in the early 1980s, but with my dad's records, who he started buying in the mid-50s. Some of the records in here are 70 years old. Now, right in the middle, next to this fellow who is protecting it, I have this here. When my dad died in 2005, he was cremated, and this contains the ashes of my father. He is here with me. All right, he's always in the background there. So you can see this is actually quite powerful for me. I've got paintings I did when I was a painter. I've got records. I've got all sorts of different things here, right? This here is not a book. It's not academic. What I'm doing here, it's like art. Things have symbols. They have metaphors. Things have esoteric meanings. I might be saying one thing, but there might be a counter thing happening, or I might say one thing on one video and I might contradict it on the next video. You have to understand that is what I'm doing here on these videos. On Philosophy Sunday, it could be that I'm making some artsy fartsy video and it's got music and visual image, or it might just be talking to camera. And what I'm talking about here fundamentally is about aesthetics and how they work. Now, my belief is that aesthetics is basically, it's the subjects and objects negotiation of beauty. Now, by beauty, that also encompasses ugliness, fear, all these different emotional categories. Now, emotions are feelings aligned to beliefs. Feelings, beliefs, emotions. Emotions are like the engine on which we move through life. If we are traveling through life, we are not in a car, we are sat on the top of an elephant, and that elephant is trudging its way through life, and we keep it under control, sat on top of it, our conscious rational thought, and we go, elephant go here, elephant go there. But the elephant can be scared, or it can be, fascinated by beauty, or it could be angry. And when the elephant decides to go, we have no control over it, right? That is our condition going forward. We have to negotiate between rationalism, which is the guy sat on the back of the elephant, and a big, powerful elephant. Most of us, his powerful element in that negotiation is between the subjects and the objects. The object is us seeing the universe from the imaginary position of God, seeing it from outside. And the other is seeing the universe from the imaginary position of us in our head, the postmodernist view. Neither of those are true. They're just a way that we have to try to understand the mystery of consciousness, which we don't. The subject and the object try and negotiate emotions, beauty, fear. The way that it does that is through the arts. Not through religion, not through science, not through philosophy. It's through the arts. And what people do is they react to the world around them. And in reacting to that, they put it out there, and then these reactions get sort of supported or not supported by the whole. And the whole negotiates with the individual. And there's some sort of agreement that comes out of a sort of sense of beauty, which is then allied to a sense of value. That value then can be applied to certain moral situations, although aesthetics is bigger than morality. Morality is contained within aesthetics. Once we have an idea of what is beautiful and what is ugly, we can assign value to certain moral situations. Is it right to kill someone? Is it right to kill a baby in the womb? Is it right to go to war? Is it right, to do this, this, and this? And once we get into those realms, we end up with politics. Politics is right at the bottom. So music, art is related to politics. And the argument that you put across when you're discussing politics is both rational, right? If we were to do this, it would have these consequences. But even utilitarian ideas of morality have their limits. Everything is just about value and aesthetics. So the way politics really works is someone going, I don't think this is very good. I think it's ugly, right? So when I look at Glastenbury, right, I feel that the art aspect of Glastenbury now is redundant. And I'm trying to point that out and say why the art is redundant, why it's blunt, why it's not having an effect, why the epoch that is dying at the moment and all the sort of things that we're going through. I'm trying to provide an answer about Glastenbury. And part of that I am doing by being facetious and lampooning the situation. I am doing the act of a grumpy old man. I'm aware of that because that is the yin to the yang. There's two things on there. I am acting the grumpy old man who doesn't like Glastonbury, that didn't go, that can't be asked to watch any of it, but has still got a judgment on there. I'm aware that that is in the video, but at the same time, I'm trying to point out contradictions in there. People buying a ticket to create a border around this little mini kingdom where they can all indulge their very similar political beliefs, although there must be people in there like Rod Stewart, who is a pro-Farage guy, and he's there, I know that, right? But Rod knows not to start shouting in his set, he's pro-Farage, and you know that's true as well. He can't do that. He can't sing a song about pro-Farage like Bob Villain cunt or Kneecap. He knows to keep his mouth shut because we know exactly what's going on there. And that elite in there, because it's basically the middle classes. And I am very interested in the middle classes. And this interest comes out of a study I did of Chairman Mao, a study I did of the critical theorists, and how when communism was not enacted and Lenin had to force it in the Soviet Union with the obvious, genocides that were approached by that, there was a number of realizations. Chairman Mao realized the problems with the middle classes. The middle classes could question things. They could aspire to be capitalists, which most middle class people are that. So they have to be switched off. Mao did it by having his sort of youth group. What were they called? I can't remember what they were called. And they would go around and find these middle-class sort of academic types who were questioning communism, and they would be taken away. God knows what would happen to them. They were killed, basically, or stood in some sort of horror death camp. And that's how the middle classes were dealt with in communist China. More recently, there's been this idea that through the universities and academy, very slowly, you can take the middle classes from being rational, exploratory truth seekers, which is what the sort of Greek idea of education is, to this sort of ideological idea of education. And I believe that has happened, and I saw it happen in the colleges. And so middle-class people who are coming out who are younger than me, they're sort of going to Glastenbury, they totally believe in systemic racism. They totally believe in a white supremacy. They totally believe in the toxicity of language. All those things to them are set in stone. All I'm saying is, I don't think they're set in stone. All I'm saying is that ideology is an ideology. It could be true, but it's probably not true, and we don't know. That is my point. It's as simple as that, right? A white supremacy is an imaginary thing. It's something we put onto a society to try and understand it. But it's not an actual thing. As a category, it doesn't exist. To base views on that, worldviews, make decisions about people, is suspect to me. Now, I can now bring in counter arguments of why I don't believe a white supremacy is a thing. I just don't think it's a thing. All right? I don't. You know, it's a bit like saying the subconscious. I don't think the subconscious is a thing. We can use it and talk about it, but no cognitive scientist will find a subconscious in the brain. They will find a whole bunch of other things. Maybe some of those things would relate to a subconscious. I don't know. And maybe there are things out there that relate to a white supremacy. I don't know. But what are those actual things? Where is it? Where does it exist? Or is it just some ghost in the machine that these people have invented? Systemic racism. The system, not the people. Oh no, systemic racism isn't that, Andy. It's like it's the collective of all people. So it's the collective racism of individuals. Well, you don't beat that with the theory then, do you? And you don't understand what the claim they're making. They believe that there's a system that has racism built in. The original people who came up with this idea were looking at the laws. Our laws have been gone through with a fine-tooth comb. If there's any racism in our laws, it has been removed. I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Right? But once that's all removed, we should be in a situation where we now have, if you believe in systemic racism, a non-racist society. But these people will never accept that anything actually gets better. They will never accept that anything has been made better by their theories. And they will never accept that there isn't systemic racism at work. Not while there's a white supremacy. You see? I question these ideas. I do this on my politics channel. I don't normally do this here. And the reason is because I have the firm belief that all this stuff is rooted in aesthetics, and aesthetics is a negotiation. An artist could come out and make you realize that this is not the sort of set in stone biblical explanation of society that you thought it was. We could shift. As we shifted away that believing there was witchcraft that explained everything, as we shifted away from a societal structure that had come through Plato's Republic, which justified slavery. All these ideas were okay ideas. We thought we were being morally good having slaves. We thought we were morally good, burning witches at the stake. We thought those were okay, and we assume that in today's culture that we don't have anything like that. And so when somebody comes out and they go, what about abortion? What if we find out that they are people? Because personhood is an aesthetic negotiation. If it's an aesthetic negotiation, you saying they're not persons, that fetuses aren't persons, is as wild and crazy as me saying they are. Which one's correct? Which one's morally right? And the truth is, it has to be negotiated. But there's people here that if you say that, they have been so brainwashed by this as an ideology. I have no problem with them believing it. It's the level at which they believe in it. And so on the Glastenbury video, what happened was I questioned the virtue signalling surrounding the waving of Palestinian flags, the championing of death to the IDF. Now, the reason I raise this is because these ideologies create massive contradictions. We have people in the UK in prison for tweets, for Facebook posts, right? I believe, because I'm an artsy-fartsy type, that people should be able to express themselves. I don't believe that people should go to prison for Facebook posts, right? Unless someone is being very specific about a time and a place with a set of instructions, incitement to violence should be that and that alone. I got told I knew nothing about the Lucy Connelly case. I have been to the back end researching that. Is she an actor? Has the whole thing been created by the deep state? You know, there's people who believe that. You know, why has she been regularly covered in the media going back 10, 15 years? Why is that going on? Who is Lucy Connelly? Connelly? What is all this about? Is it to make us feel scared? Is it to shut us up? What would the society be? Or is she just an innocent housewife that put a tweet up and then regretted it and took it down? Either way, however you examine this, it's very strange that she is in prison for 2.5 years. But those people at Glastenbury who were shouting for the death of people, Kneecap was shouting for a riot to happen, they will not be in prison for 2.5 years. I'll eat my hat if they have. And if they are, it's because this government has made a U-turn. I am making a statement about that, not about Palestine. Right, I am making a statement about free speech. I'm making a statement about something that doesn't make sense in my country at the moment. I am raising contradictions, like someone championing for Palestine to be free, but by the same token saying you're not going to have your country back. That's a contradiction. Can you understand this? Forget whose side we're on. That's a contradiction, isn't it? Which one's correct? That the British people should give over their sovereignty to new British people that are coming in and taking over. Well, that's what the Jews are. They've been there for 70 years. Whereas immigrants to the UK, some of them have only been here for 5 or 10 years. But we're supposed to give that over to them after 5 or 10 years. But the Palestinians should, kick the Jews out, be there for 70 years. I'm not on it. This is the whole thing I want to get across to you. I'm not on the side of any of these. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think about Palestine. I'm going to tell you what I think about Gaza, right? It's this. A whole sequence of events, a whole things have been done wrong to all sorts of different people. The Jews have had bad things done to them, right? They had the Holocaust. Before that, they had the Hebron massacre back in 1929, right? This has been going on before 1948 or whatever everyone wants to take it back to. The Jews have had massacres against them. The Palestinians have had massacres against them. When you get back far enough, everybody on the planet, except those who are following a sort of tolerant Western liberal way of thinking, we're killing everybody else. That's what we've come out of that, and we've learnt ways of stopping that from happening. So you go back to this tribalism. That's what it is tribalism. This whole conflict is grown out of tribalism. And now we have a situation where we got Israel that probably shouldn't be there. The Balfour Declaration shouldn't have been done, but they are there. And they've been there. And my attitude as a touchy-feely hippie type is, leave them there. They're doing all right. They got Arabs there. They tolerate everybody. They're absolutely fine. Leave them there. Why have the Palestinians got to keep this going for? Why can't they all just get on? Why can't they all just get on? I'm a bad person for asking that question. Well, we know why, don't we? Because Hamas, who they democratically voted in 2005, right, which was their democratic choice, that is what they did. Hamas in 1987 grew out of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood was really the Islamic Arab wing of the Nazi party. If Hitler had won the war, they would have combined together to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. Now, Hamas and the people who represent that will not ever say that they want to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. But that is what I mean by anti-Semitism. It's the desire to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. And people might say this has been anti-Zionist. They might say this and this and this. But I believe that right going back to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, And even before that, there has been an ongoing persecution of the Jews that they are uniquely evil and they need to be removed. And that has now become a prophecy within certain wings of the Islamic religion, the extreme wings of that. So the jihadists, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Iranian regime believe that they cannot enact the will of the Prophet until Israel has gone. This is not about everybody getting on. It's not about a two-state solution. It's not about Palestinians having their freedom. They represent that. And that idea has been what's fueled this for the last 70 years. And that exploded on October the 7th. And October the 7th wasn't an act of war. It was an act of this sort of religious, tribal hatred. And that is why kids were running into Israel, killing Jews, dipping their hands in the blood, and then ringing their parents up so they could be proud of what they'd done. Right? That's what's going on. Now, as soon as that's happened, Israel, that I believe has been in an existential crisis and tried their best to negotiate this, but also has lashed out viciously, illegally, for that whole 70 years, have done all sorts of bad stuff. Israel is not the good guys, and neither is Hamas. Nobody is. And the way Israel is acting now is we have them calling Hamas out for using, human shields, whilst taking Palestinians and holding them at gunpoint and marching them into certain situations, as using them to search for booby traps, right? There is video after video of the IDF standing there, blowing up whole towns for no reason, except that Israel obviously want to wipe Gaza out. So there is no Gaza to have at the end of this anyway, by anybody. All right? That's obvious. All the things that we're accusing Hamas of doing, it seems that Israel are also doing. And it's opaque as to where their intentions lie. Because the one thing about Hamas is they do tend to tell the truth. We want to wipe out Israel. We want to kill all the Jews in the area. They're honest about that. Israel isn't. So they go, we'll investigate this. That was a mistake. We didn't mean to shoot that. But the evidence is overwhelming of what Israel are doing. Touchy-feely liberal types, right, driven by certain revolutionary Marxists that are utilising this to be able to make our society unstable, so they can enact their revolution, have captured those middle-class people who are basically going, Israel's really horrible. I don't like what they're doing. They're starving babies, and neither do I, right? If they are doing that, I don't like it. I'm in a position where I do not know what the truth is, that we are dealing with the mainstream media, which is completely biased, and we're dealing with media like this, with people like me talking that have no check on them. I don't know what the truth is, right? What I am criticizing is not the cause. I am not pro-Israel. I am not pro any of them. Not at all. Okay? In the future, you're going to see I've been involved in another charity thing I put a lot of effort in, which will show you where my colours lie on this, right? What I am critiquing is the way the middle classes are being utilised by forces that they don't understand, to act out a certain way of thinking, which is, for me, a certain aspect of the elites who control the world. Now, the elites don't control the world like some sort of secret Illuminati. It's pure chaos. Most of them don't know what they're doing, but they have the money and power to influence stuff. Bernie Sanders was on Joe Rogan the other day. I agreed with most of what he'd got to say. And I think he's a decent guy, and I have a load of respect for him. And him calling out billionaires on both sides of the political spectrum trying to influence politics is what I'm talking about. We have two of these going on. We have a sort of nationalist elite, and we have a globalist elite. If I was going to side with one of these elites, it would be the nationalist elite, not the globalist elite, right? That's another video. I can't get into all these things. But my opinion is not as cut and dried as you think, right? When I come on here and I start moaning about Glastenbury, I'm a curmudgeon. I'm a middle-aged man. I'm a middle-aged man voicing a certain thing. I'm a parody of myself. Most of the videos I do on this channel are a parody of me being the old codger, the middle-aged bloke with his record collection. I am very aware of that, and that is very postmodern. It's very meta that is wound into this, right? My anger when I see the people of Glastonbury shouting death, death to the IDF, right? I'm angry at that, but I'm not angry because I don't agree with that. I don't agree with chanting death to anybody. It's wrong. But by the same token, people should be able to go to a music contest and chant it. It shouldn't be an issue, right? If some idiot that goes and tries to kill the IDF based upon that, they're an idiot, right? If somebody acts like, these bloody serial killers that act because they watch, wanting to rescue Jodie Foster in The Taxi Driver, or they listen to Helter Skelter by the Beatles, or they had the Judas Priest album backwards. This is all ridiculous. And that's how we used to see the world in the old days. We knew it was ridiculous. So why do the powers that be want to control? And what are they trying to control? And why are they frightening us so we won't say anything? Why do I get message after message saying, be careful what you say on your channel, Andy? We're worried about you. We don't want you carted off to prison. I sit there thinking, I've got a YouTube. It's not my fault I got YouTube. I didn't plan it, but I've got one. That's how I earn my living now. I'm on here talking and I'm going to have my opinion. If I start to stifle my opinion, go, let's just only talk about Yes and Genesis, right? I am not true to myself. And this doesn't become art. It now just becomes some biased nonsense that's just part of the system here. But there is some sort of freedom here on YouTube. I'm trying to negotiate it. Right? That freedom for artistic people is so important. And that is where I lie in terms of my allegiance. My allegiance is to art. It's not to Karl Marx. It's not to postmodernists. It's not to identity politics. It's not to reform. It's not to Trump. It's not to any of these. Not at all. Right? If I get told I'm pro-Farage again, when I actually have been so much more critical of him than any of you lot have publicly, the guy's a grifter. He's got one political point. If he ever gets Prime Minister, do you trust him to look after our water and our electrics and be thinking about that at all? Of course not. Right? He is like Boris Johnson, like Trump. He is a figure that has amassed a certain wealth and status. And he wants to tick the box of going, and I was Prime Minister. Now, when he becomes Prime Minister of the UK, he will then, end up being the Boris Johnson who wanted that job so bad since he was a little kid. And then once he got it, he's got it. And he's gone down in history of being a bloody waste of space. Although he did negotiate his way through COVID, which you probably all think was terrible, but could have been a lot more terrible, I tell you that. But then I do have this thing of looking at every situation, trying to see both sides. But you know why? Because I'm not a Marxist. Now, this video has been, it's been motivated by communication between me and Ben Watson, who is a Marxist and was on this channel. And again, this is yet another person where my political beliefs have motivated comments, which again, rather than just being counter arguments, which I have no problem with, have been told that what I say is shite, that I shouldn't be doing this, I should just stick to drumming. I'm not going to be told that by anybody, believe me. If you try and do it, you can try and do it. But this is my channel. I've got the viewers, I've got the subscribers, right? I am not thick. I am not uninformed. I'm probably as informed as you are, and some of you will be more informed than me on certain subjects, and I could well be more informed than you. And to go to any situation thinking because you have a certain set of political beliefs, you could just randomly say to me, right, that I have not done my research, that I'm ignorant, that I should stick to music, that I shouldn't be speaking on this, right? I find that abhorrent, and I'm saying it here, okay? Because really, for us all to be happy, it would be best off if you either just watched the channel and when something came up that you didn't like, you just kept it to yourself or you pointed out. There's a guy on my political channel that has pointed out stuff and I've gone, you're totally right. I have changed my opinion. I will say it on the next video. I have done that repeatedly. If someone gives me a counter argument and I'm wrong, I will change. But just telling somebody that they're stupid basically is an argument is not something that I'm a big fan of, I'm afraid, right? And I'm telling you this on this channel so you understand. I've really tried to state this seriously on this channel, on this video, so you understand where I'm coming from. Please, if you have the urge to go, unless you're doing it as a parody, and I'll find that very funny. But if you want to go, stick to drumming. You shouldn't be talking about this. You need to do some research, right? If you do that on here, from now on, I will just delete those comments, right? They are not adding to the discussion. They make you look like a patronizing fool, and they're designed to make me look like an idiot, right? And there is nothing more than that. I am a free speech advocate, but I'm a free speech in the public realm. This is not the public realm. This is my channel. I have a delete button on those comments. You don't. And I'm going to utilize them because it's there for a reason. I've talked to your other YouTubers and said this is getting me really down. I don't mind counter arguments, right? All the stuff, which is people calling me a cunt, call me a goofy brummie, all this stuff that I get, those are 2 today, just before I came out. All the ones that insult me and my family, they insult what I look like, what I talk like, all that stuff, YouTube deletes anyway. That's not me deleting it. If you do something and you think your comment's gone, it's because you did something that YouTube decided was immoral. All right, and if you want me to point out, because I do see them and I don't put them back up unless YouTube's made a mistake. And I try not to look at that stuff as I can, but YouTube gets rid of those. But it does not get rid of these ones where people are basically saying I'm ignorant, right? Say where I'm wrong. That's all you got to do. But I am going to delete those, right? Anybody says anything that I'm talking crap, you don't know what you're talking about, it's my channel, they're going, right? That is not free speech. That is just someone insulting me. And I'm not going to be insulted by you. Most of you are absolutely on my side. My audience is highly intelligent. They've got great taste in music. They're interesting. They're funny. They get the humor. 80, 90% of you. And I tell you the ones who aren't like that, it's the ones who believe that their left-wing stance is absolute. Or they wouldn't be doing it. Would they? Would they? Is there any other reason to call me out and say I'm ignorant? If you think I'm ignorant or badly, researched, or the worst one is when people say you shouldn't be talking about this because you're a drummer. Why? It just smacks of upper middle class elitism. People who went to Cambridge or Oxford, people who did those types of degrees that believe that they should be able to talk on these subjects. And I'm just part of the great unwashed. I'm middle class, but I'm lower middle class, you see. I really think that's what this is about. Come across it over and over. If it's not, then I need someone explaining to me why I'm a drummer and I can't discuss something. Why is it because I haven't got a degree in what? Because I haven't had the education? What is it? What is it that I shouldn't be talking about this subject for? Right? I am deeply annoyed by it. I'm not upset by it. I'm annoyed by it. Right? That's the bottom line. Those comments will be deleted from now on. It's my channel. It's my sanity. I will enjoy it. I've spoke to other YouTubers and I've said, what do you do when they just come in and insult you or just say you shouldn't, and they said, you just delete them, Andy. And he said, you enjoy pressing that delete. And then it's gone, and nobody will get upset, because the truth is, what I have learned recently is sometimes leaving those up and believing in that type of free speech for me to be insulted publicly. Nah, not happening. That's it. That was a contentious video. It was a troublesome video. I think I will now retreat back to my politics channel and do that stuff there. If you don't want to see that, don't go and follow the politics channel. If you just want to hear the music, then just hear the music here. But every Philosophy Sunday, I will talk about whatever I want. And when somebody says, oh, Andy put a video out when he said he was just going to talk about his albums, and now he's talking about Glastbury, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's my channel, and I'll change my mind. Have you all understood? This is my channel, right? This is my channel, okay? I decide what happens on here. That's the bottom line, okay? That's the only bit of control I have here. I started off talking about how I'm an outsider. I am an outsider, but my outsiderness has been able to galvanize a whole bunch of other outsiders around me. If you're part of that group and you're willing to go, like some people have said, you know, I don't agree with your politics, but I love your channel and I like you, Andy. That's great. Just say that. So now you express that you don't agree with me, and that's wonderful. All right? Those of you who disagree with my politics, we need you. We need you to put your argument forward. I've just got a certain stance based upon my experiences. Other people have another stance. I'm not right. I know I'm not right because I'm not an ideological fool that thinks I'm right. The only way we can get to something which will be the best for the vast majority of people is by talking about this seriously, right? It's by my deep-set hatred of, say, Marxism, my deep-set hatred of identity politics. You need to persuade me against it. I'm not doing this because I'm an evil person. I'm doing it because I think I'm a good person, that I have seen the evil in it. So you have to explain that against me. You have to put it in the comments. Calling me ignorant is say, I'm so annoyed by it. It's unbelievable. I'm going to finish now. We couldn't come up to the hour. I can't do this one anymore. Philosophy Sunday can be whatever it wants. Why am I why am I apologising for about 5% of the viewers here? Why? Why are we all doing this? Why are we kowtowing to the people who stand there like spoilt little children saying, this is the way it should be? I have this opinion. Why are we kowtowing to them? Because we're English, because we're polite, because we don't want to rock the boat? Why so many people messaging me saying, oh, you're so brave saying this? I'm not brave. I'm just saying what I think. I am just saying what I'm thinking. I'm telling you now, I don't even say I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying what I think on a YouTube, which is an artistic endeavour, not a statement of facts, not an academic truth. It's not that. I've tried to prove that on here. I've tried to show you the things that are happening that are metaphorical, that are symbolic, the esoteric ideas, the idea that for every point I'm making, hidden within the video will be the opposite point existing at the same time. I try my best to put all that into these. I've got to stop getting so annoyed by it all. That's my problem. That is my problem. I'm a very driven person, and I'm driven to create. And my creativity is based upon it's like very influenced by the surrealists, and I believe in just expressing yourself without thinking. I believe that I should be able to come in here and just talk, and whatever I say then will have an effect, and I'm almost like disassociated from that. I want to be able to do that. That's what I want to be able to do. I don't want people telling me I can't talk about certain things, that I should stick to certain subjects. If a video goes a certain way, it goes a certain way. I will stick to this whatever. That is it. That's the decision, right? You can't please everybody. Maybe this video, you get a whole bunch of people unsubscribing. If you want to subscribe because someone says something you didn't like on a channel that you've been watching, enjoying, then I think you should go. I think you should go and not watch this channel, because all that's going to happen is you're just going to keep getting opinions you don't like. It's the bottom line, because I can't censor myself in the way that you want me to. I just can't. do it. I can't do this channel and censor myself like that. I just cannot do it. I'm just not the right person to do it. I just can't do it. Sorry. I wish I was. I wish I could just come on here and just stick to talking about Prague. But that's not the excitement I get from this channel. That's not what I find creative. That's not what gets me up in the morning. That's not what gets my brain working. Music is a massively important part of my life, but it's a part of my life, and life is even more important. And music is a massive aspect of life. On here, I'm really talking about life. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being alive. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.